Right. Well, it's a good evening here from the studios of Radio FM88 Australia. So, without further ado, we've got our guest. He's been coming. This will be his fourth assignment to come in and teach the world and provide his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. He's all the way from Italy. He speaks English. We've seen him before. It's a welcome back to Michelangelo, and it's also with Priti as well. And it's a good morning to you in the UK.
Good morning. Thank you.
Oh, you're sharing the computers today, girls and boys.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, without further ado, we've got a conversation that's going to be about darkness and light. Most people would say light and darkness, but it's darkness and light, and energy versus matter. But what was really interesting is the situation when you mentioned we got the solstice coming up. Obviously, there's the winter solstice for you guys, but it's also our summer solstice down here in the southern hemisphere. And obviously it replicates itself back in the end of June and for you guys in the UK. That's why I've got the Avebury standing stones there, because a lot of people turn up at the solstice at Avebury rather than Stonehenge. But anyway, darkness and light, and the story of Lucifer, if I'm not mistaken, the bringer of light. Was that the theme today? Yeah.
In a way, yes. And I would like to emphasize that in our culture, we see the opposition when what we bring forward is the need of both the aspects in order to create, to form the creation, instead of fighting one against the other or in opposition. In fact, our culture is based on the opposition, like if things are clashing against, when the light needs absolutely the darkness, otherwise people cannot be conscious. We need always the opposites in order to become conscious of what we are dealing with. And especially because the root of our culture, especially in the West, that now has been diffused all over the world, is the principle that has been expressed in the Bible, where there is the darkness and the light, and they are practically they represent the two principles of each opposite. The darkness is opposite to the light, but in a constructive presence, in a constructive issue. And we see that, for example, in the creation, there was the darkness, and then with the voice, with the sounds, which is another vibration, God creates, starts the creation with the light. And then with the voice, you say, light, and light was, and light be, And this is practically is the synthesis of everything, because the light is the highest frequency in the physical form. For example, in the third dimension where we are living now, the light is the fastest entity. Einstein explains that below the light, also there is the materialization, and you go lower, 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 we arrive to the physical form. The light is the highest frequency, 300,000 kilometers per second, and the energy is the light multiplied itself. So in the Bible is also expressed that God was surrounded by the angels, which are hierarchy, right? Hierarchy, yes. And the highest form of the angel was called Lucifer. And Lucifer, from the Latin, means the bringer of light. So means that to bring the light, you need bring the consciousness of the light. You need the darkness. So Lucifer was the expression of the bringer of light in the darkness. The problem is that these two entities, light and darkness, represent the masculine and the feminine. And it was for me very clear. It was a shock for me when I was 33, when I arrived in India, and I was arriving to participate to a festival in honor of the Divine Mother. And I was thinking, coming from the Western culture, that the mother was represented, especially for the Catholic, the mother of Jesus, Mary. And when I just said, because I was coming from a very Catholic family, my mother was especially a great Catholic believer, and she became the president of the Italian Catholic Housewives. She had even to deal with the Pope. She was giving special retreats to the nuns. She was explaining this. So I was sucked and soaked in my family in this super Catholic atmosphere where you could not, let's say, detach from this culture which was surrounding us in every aspect of our life. And then I was not so happy. I was feeling that something strange was about this. But, it's like when I was born, I was also naturally not vegan, but vegetable oriented in my food. And then I was subjected to all the pressure and everything. So I became, maybe I hated the meat, but anyhow, for a while I was eating the dairy products and some other food. But anyhow, when I arrived in India in 1987, I was daring to say to someone who told me, "Oh, you are very lucky because you have the opportunity to participate to this festival in honor of the Divine Mother." And I said, "Oh, we have also in Italy, we have 9 days celebrations in honor of the Divine Mother, which is the Virgin Mary." She got horrified. I said, "No, the Virgin Mary is the mother of Jesus, which is who she's honorable and everything, but she's not the Divine Mother, because the Divine Mother is practically the representative, the opposite, the alternative to the Divine Father. But in the Bible, there is only the presence of the Divine Father, who is a judgmental creator and very strong, powerful, but there is not the figure of the Divine Mother. In that moment, I realized that it was really missing. And the Catholic, they have put Mary as the substitute of this Divine Mother, when also with the Protestants, they divided them a little bit, and they separated from the concept of Mary as the Divine Mother. But anyhow, I asked to see that. She said, "But you can come to the temple and see the Divine Mother." And when I arrived in the temple, I saw the representation of the Divine Mother in this statue, which was totally black and very horrific, not beautiful, like we have the idea of Virgin Mary in all our churches and representation, and soft and gentle. And this was horrible, and with a necklace of skulls around the neck. And she told me these are the skulls of her children that she has decapitated in order to stop them to do things which would destroy the spiritual life. My God. And so you can start to see an image of the Divine Mother, which is totally different from the goody, the good image of how the feminine should be. We have always the idea that now we had also in the last 150 years the feminist movement, which has created a lot of confusion in the idea of the feminine, because it's a sort of competition with the male in order to show that they can do exactly what the male can do, when they don't realize what is the power of the feminine, which is totally different from the power of the masculine, So going forward, I realized that the Divine Mother representation in India was black. And also I remember that we have many black Madonnas in the Western culture, like in Czestochowa, or also when we were running the fasting in Valdosta, there was in the lower village, there was a church with a black Madonna. There is also in Loreto, a black Madonna in Italy, many in Spain. And this also is the leftover of this idea that the feminine is represented as a black entity, because that's the light and darkness, but not in competition, but in a coexistence, in cooperation, because without the darkness, we could not be aware of the light. If you stay in the darkness for a while, then you realize what is the light. Even a little match, can allow you to see the things. Otherwise, you stay in the darkness and you have to develop other sensations. I remember one of my teachers was a French acupuncturist. He was born in Indochina. He was incredible. He was born blind, and then they did an operation to him and he could see. But then he grew up and then he had a car accident, and with this car accident he became blind, not resolvable. And I remember I was telling him, but what is your experience? Why you are not desperate? Because you have seen the light. He said, oh yes, I know what is the light. I don't need it, because with my body I can perceive what the light even does not, let's say, does not give me what I feel with the body. It was incredible, because he could just, with being blind, he was touching, even not touching, just staying a little bit far of your body, and he was feeling all the acupuncture points. He was putting the needles without, like we were using the detectors with the infrared, He was just feeling in your body, and he was putting maybe 2 or 3 needles in one session. Like now, the modern acupuncturists, they do maybe 5, 10, 15 needles, and this shows that they are not in tune with the body energy. And that's why I said, if I have to learn this, it would need maybe 30 years, 40 years, and I'm not at the level of this man. So I prefer to develop another technique which is more physical in a way, but accelerates and triggers the energy in the body to react. Anyhow, let's go back to the Divine Mother, and we see that the Divine Mother in the Bible is not present. And then they say in the Bible was written that Lucifer, which is the bringer of light, so far is the king of the darkness, was almost equal like God. And in the Bible, he challenges God, and God, with his almighty power, defeats him and throws him in another dimension, or maybe what we call the hell or the separation, And this is exactly the origin of the archetype of challenge, competition, and not cooperation. And this was exactly creating in us the deception, which we are still in the matrix now. And now probably slowly this will open, because we will be very soon in contact with other expression and explanations, which if we are ready, we can digest and understand better, because this is the hope that we have. And for me, it's not a hope, it's a certainty. Anyhow, in this moment, imagine if we create the unconscious. In the unconscious, the darkness is the enemy of the light, let's say Godfather, what appears, and they are fighting. And imagine in our unconscious, because they represent the archetype of the father and the mother and father are fighting, which is always happening in the modern time. When the mother and father, they start to fight, they create a lot of stress and a lot of fear in their children. So because we are the children of God, we are expression of God. Remember that in the Bible is also written that God made us in his resemblance, image and resemblance, So we are divine expressions. But we, being divine expression, we are also very intelligent, we are also very intuitive. And in fact, our knowledge, the rational knowledge is nothing related to what it is, our inner real universal knowledge, So we are all scared already because father and mother are fighting, and this happens in the supreme levels, in the unconscious level, where Godfather is fighting with Lucifer, which is practically the Divine Mother. And this also creates in the unconscious this fight in which the father overruns the mother. The mother becomes an inferior entity. When, if you go in the West, especially also if you study the Chinese acupuncture, yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine, they are even. If they are imbalanced, you don't have health. You don't have the well-being, the state. Of course, it's a constant movement, because where there is no movement, there is death. So life is characterized by the motion. There was a saying in Latin, in motu vitae, in the motion there is life. So when there is the stillness represents no life. So the light needs also the darkness, and in fact, look also in our life, we are conceived in the darkness, in the body of our mothers. Now they do the inseminations of the artificial fertilization, but this is crazy, because especially the great teachers, they were saying that what is important in the conception is the vital energy which is come from love. Everything in the universe is a creation, is characterized by love. And especially also when we say make love, conceive a baby, that's very important. If there is no love, there is much less energy. That's what's happening now in the artificial conception. There is much less vital energy. There is less of this entity, with this frequency, which should characterize all the lives. And then darkness and life and light, they become again the interactive in the needed entities to have the creation in the in its best outcome. In the wholeness, yes. And then we can go on and we start to see that from this, we can see all the history of humanity, because Lucifer in the Bible is the creating the bait, because the divine children, Adam and Eve, they're obedient because God tells them not to eat the forbidden fruit, which is the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. This means the fruit of the awareness, because if you don't know the good and evil, which means the light and the darkness, you are not aware. The animals don't have this awareness. They live in accordance with the natural laws, and they don't put themselves the questions that we are putting ourselves. And with the light and darkness, we have that's the origin, the archetypes of all what comes from there, and we develop ourselves. And Lucifer is provoking the children, and if you read clearly the Bible, is subtle psychology. Is the mother. The mother knows better the children than the father, because she has carried them. She has, having them in the pregnancy is connected. And especially when we study the pregnancy, we know that the girls, the girls pick up from the mother the way to reproduce, but not only reproduce, is to become female. And I remember now, if you allow me to tell you another story of my life, when I was very young, I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and we were living in a little house, very beautiful. We were 5 children, and in the house there was the underneath garage, and then we were living two floors. And my father in the garden was having the vegetable garden behind and the flower garden, so you have a beautiful appearance and trees. And also he was raising the chicken. And the chicken were in a corner. He made a beautiful shed for them. But in February, he was taking the hen who was hatching and was putting the hen inside the house in the basement besides the garage, which for us children was a sort of playground. But we had the order that during that period we cannot make too much noise or to shout or scream and play, because if the hen would be scared, she would not hatch the eggs for the chicken. And I remember that once we were taken by the game and we were shouting. My father kept quiet, don't disturb there is the hen is hatching, And then in my simplicity, said, Father, but why we have to live this life for 1 month because the hen is hatching when with a little bit of money, we had our tip. Every week, Father was giving a little tip to everyone. So with my tip, I can go and buy a few chicks in the consortium, agricultural consortium, where they have these chicks, and you buy maybe for 100 liters. At that time, it was you could buy maybe 10 chicks, and so I can go and buy 10, and then we can play free, and we don't have to do. And my father, which was normally very hard with me and very severe, was like a military. My sister, she reminds me that in our family, we were run like in a military camp because we were 5 children at the time. We became 7 then. But he said, you think you know everything, but you know that the chicks which come out of the artificial hatchery, the female will not hatch anymore. Wow, I was shocked. And I say, so he said, imagine what's happening when this hen is hatching the eggs. The female chicks will learn without speaking, without going to school. They will learn to be female. So then when they will be grown up, they will hatch themselves, the new chicken. Now, in the hatchery, the eggs get the warmth, get the best, and but they don't get the female energy. So they don't get the information which enables them to hatch themselves when they were adults. And in another big seminar, well, in another school which I attended, which was the prenatal school, we were told that the president of the Californian pediatrist and obstetrician, he went all over the world, and they did he had an interesting experience when the United Nations they offered to Haiti, this island, Haiti, a hospital, the most modern hospital, because Haiti at the time, and probably, I don't know now, was one of the poorest countries in the world. So they decided to give the most beautiful hospital on the expenses of the United Nations. Many teams of doctors, they contributed to this. And then in this hospital, they had also the maternity ward. And they say in Haiti, there was a lot of children born, and then every day there were maybe from 10 to 20 deliveries. And the children were stay perfect, the technicality. And but all the children, the majority of the children were becoming infected. They suffered infections. So they thought it was a need of more hygiene. So they called the best teams from all over the world to resolve this problem. So there were Germans, English, French, all the best Americans. They were trying to resolve cleaning everything. But anyhow, the children were always with the sickness, with the infections. Then this doctor had also beautiful humor. He said, then we were already giving up to resolve this problem. We had to sacrifice. These children were always with antibiotics, with infections and everything. And then the nature came to put a little solution.
Okay.
And there was the earthquake in Haiti, and the earthquake obliged the hospital, because a lot of wounded people, to make more space for the wounded, So they put the children, we were in their little beds, they put the children in the bed with the mothers. And with this simple choices, practically all the children got healed. And then they understood that the connection of the physical connection of the body of the mother with the child makes the immunity system so strong. It's moving for me, because when I understand this, it's incredible, and you can understand the power of the feminine just being in connection with the baby, which we don't understand because everything is structured as we have in our mind, thinking to the comfort, thinking to the practicalities and everything. And this doctor also was saying that the maternity has been studied in function of the practicality of the doctors and the operators of the health. When I already probably told in my first lecture here, the first interview, that when I was still in that period in India, I was crossing the Himalayan jungle, and my shock was when the porter stopped me when we were crossing a rice field, and I thought it was maybe a snake or maybe a jaguar or something. Instead, there was a lady alone in a corner of the rice field, and she was delivering by herself. And then I thought, my God, where we have gone. Why we are arrived to this point? A woman that is delivering with no midwife, no doctors, nothing like the normal animals do and without pain. And then I got back again. Lucifer, the Bible, and then when children, Adam and Eve, they eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and immediately, because they start to be, this means they start the process of becoming aware, and God understands that they have eaten the fruit because they are now hiding because they are naked. So to be dressed and naked is another opposite, you know. That's all what we are living in, this reality, the reality, the third dimension reality of the physicality brings you all this. And then I realized that the women can deliver with all, not all this terror. You need a midwife, you need doctors, you need hospitals. Women, if they are relaxed, they do like the animals, they deliver without any troubles. And on top of this, in the Bible is written that God gives Eve the punishment, then do deliver in pain and torments. So that's the only animal that delivers in pain and torments, because all the other female animals, they don't deliver in pain and torments. And I realized, even if I'm not agreeing with Freud in the total, but Freud mentioned that the orgasm is the same level of energy and pain that you can perceive, but only when your mind is not programmed in the fear. So again, the children are grown, are born. We are all born through mothers, which, with their fear of the pain, that is the punishment of the Bible, is conditioned to give to feel pain, and gives the baby, male and female, the fear of pain, the fear of sickness, which is the second fear. If you remember, when we speak that the major spiritual schools, they had three prerequisites that you have to learn before entering. And one is to overcome the fear of the cold water. The second one is the fear of overcome the fear of the pain and the sickness. And the third is the fear of death. So if you are overcoming these three fears, you are considered ready to start a spiritual process, a growing process. Not that you are arrived to the prerequisites, and exactly the fear of the cold water is happening when you are born, because we have been in the amniotic liquid for all the pregnancy period. When we come out, the exposure to the air, even if it's warm, there is a good, comfortable temperature when you are born, but the exposure of the wet body to the cold air, to the air, even warm, gives you a sensation of cold. And if the delivery has been traumatized or traumatic, then you will remember this in your unconscious, not in the conscious. So whenever you have to deal with the cold water, this memory comes up. And that's why we do a lot of work in this direction. So we encourage also, because with the cold water, you can energize the body. We say when you take the shower in the morning or the bath, finish always with the cold shower, because the cold shower many people are scared of, especially in some countries where this fear, the baby fear in the delivery is quite, the delivery has been quite traumatized for the child, traumatizing for the child. Then this is brought all your life. When you have a change a situation, which is when you change from the darkness of the womb to the light of the life, and then this already creates a stress. So when you have to change, when you change a relationship, when you change work, when you change a house, when you change anything in your life, this will come up. This is a memory that you are not aware is coming from the unconscious, because we can go back to the memories that we are holding in our conscious only to the moment in which the conscious is developed. And the developing period of the conscious is when you start to talk. My great teacher, Dr. Sidlauskas, was always telling me that when you start to talk, you are creating the conscious, the rational mind, because you have to articulate the recognition of the sounds, the reproduction of the sounds with the mouth, because imagine when you speak English, you have to shape your mouth in a different way from when you shape in Italian or in German or in Spanish, And this is a physical work. It's like you are mastering this. When you shape, there was also the study about the frequencies. These are the frequencies of the sound, and then there are the frequencies of the light. This is also very interesting, to put together all these things. And then you can arrive to see what the unconscious creates, and we think we are free, when in reality we are guided by all these energies which have been created when we were in the womb and when we were born. So far, yesterday I was speaking with the lady who is coming here to help, Pauline, and she was speaking about her daughter who is left-handed. And I remember I was just 18, now I'm 72, so it was 54 years ago. And I was thinking to know something, and then I spoke with Dr. Sidlauskas, as I told her, but the left hand, we should leave the left-handed to learn how to write and do things with the left hand, because they are guided by this inclination. And she said, no, this inclination is to let them be in the confusion. Because you have to know that the left-handed is an extra work for the people, because the learning center, the learning of the speech center is in the left side of the brain. And with this we learn, and this controls and commands the right side. So if you start to use the left side, unless your the speech center is on the right, you are doing a double work, because the work starts from the left and then goes to the right, and then the right gives the impulse and the direction to the left. So, and this is an extra stress, because the left-handed people, they have maybe an higher intelligence many times. But the problem is they are also disturbed, because for Dr. Sidlauskas, this was a shock, maybe a stress that they received in the prenatal life most of the time, which obliges them to shift the direction and the energy, let's say, in the choice of the life. I remember my son was ambidextrous, he was doing, but I gently, with praying prizes and praising him, rewards to use the right hand, because in the past they were too violent and maybe too aggressive in forcing the children to become right. It was right, like we have been brought up with the type of education from our parents, which was like to train the animals, and then you were punished if you were doing some mistakes, and you were praised if you were doing something good. In reality, good and evil, light and darkness, the two sides of the reality. And I remember also when I was 33 and I was also learning how to fly, my instructor got pissed off with me, because he realized, because I was not allowing myself to do the mistakes. Such was the fear to do the mistakes, when the mistakes are needed in order to learn. Of course, the mother and the motherly energy has to protect the child not to do certain mistakes which put in danger the life. But that's where the mother's intelligence and common sense should intervene and direct the situation. Anyhow, we go back to this dark, because all what I'm saying is connected with the darkness and the light, because the darkness is when you are experiencing a certain energy, and then you come out of the darkness, you see the light, so you become aware of another reality. So we are growing into the light, and we speak always that people are illuminated, when they realize there is a different reality, there is a different frequency. So now we are at the moment, I know if more, we are 10 days away to the solstice, but and this was a period, was the moment in which I remember my teacher, the alchemy teacher, that he was teaching me, instead of the tinctures, because we were speaking about tinctures and herbal remedies. And in the Middle Age, they did not use the alcohol for doing tinctures, and they were using the vapors of the water. So the alchemist was using the water of the spring with the herbs soaked and boiled inside. So the vapor would be the transmitter or the holder of the information of the herbs. So we enter in a different level of using the energies, and then that's why also we cannot give the tinctures to the children when the vapors can be given the children, because it's water with information of the plants and the vegetables, which have also an incredible frequency. Each one is not only a physical frequency, but they have also an emotional frequency. We are, in this period, we are using this tansy, that is the herb, which puts you in connection with the dimension where there is no death, and also that is scary for the people that are attached to the physical form. If you decide to explore your possibilities, you enter in, we have lost this thread which connects us with the dimension where there is no death. In the spiritual schools, they were always saying that what has a start and what has an end is an illusion. When what has no start and no end, that is the reality. So imagine that we are living in an illusion, thinking that this is a reality. So our physical body is a sort of illusion which starts and ends. All what surrounds us as this quality that start and ending is an illusion. What is real? It's something that does not start and does not end. And the light can also be a item or an excuse to see how the energy frequency is moving, because at the light speed, normally time should stop. Because Einstein says that the light speed, 300,000 kilometers per second, the time stops. And the scientists, they found this already with the astronauts that are only flying in the rockets at 27,000 kilometers per hour, which is like a slow speed. But anyhow, stay maybe for months in the space at that speed. The watches have to be tuned because they slow down. So this it's proved, physically proved, that more you advance in the speed, more the time slows down. And that's why also is one of the things that I always tell my students, that eating vegetables, they have a higher frequency than the animals. And then you may stay, you go in the future slower. So you become less aging, especially with the animal food. In fact, the Eskimos, they have a very short life. They live maximum 30, 35 years because they eat only animal food all their life. When for us, because we eat only from the vegetable dimension, we have a frequency which is related to the light speed. It's a higher frequency, so we slow down when we enter in the future. This is also interesting because you see the light tells us many aspects of our lives, of our behaviors, our growth and expression. And also speaking about light, I was listening to Alex Collier explanation the other day about the crystals they have made with the spirals, and so the light enters in this with these crystals and becomes a realigner of the energies that in our body are out of alignment. And then they have created these med beds that also Trump mentioned. They say, well, it's a quark, when in reality they will be available very soon, maybe, I don't know, in a exactly. That's the concept of soon is a little bit different from our soon. But anyhow, when they will be available, we can regrow. But that's the energy I was always speaking. When you have at disposition this kind of energy, your body works through energy, so can reproduce, connecting with the auric field, the alignment of the cells, the DNA, and everything. When now they are starting to do some, because we are bombarded by these questions constantly, if the teeth can regrow, and I say yes, they can regrow. Only they need a very superior energy. When now they are doing experiments in Japan and in Korea, but they are using staminal cells, and we don't know if they are human or they are also animals. They found that it can regrow, but they also found that they were using staminal cells of the rat.
Yeah.
Then let's go back to the light and the darkness. They are part of the same dimension. Only they're needed in order that we achieve the consciousness. And there is, in this should not be the judgment. And then how the judgment starts in the energy of the human being. It starts in the stomach. And exactly when we started to decay, losing our consciousness of what we are, we start to use the food which the stomach is not done for it, and is not proper. So we lose also the spleen. Remember when we spoke about the cleaning the spleen?
Heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth. We lose the consciousness of what we are. We have lost it in a way. And then we are searching for who we are when we are something different from what our mind is searching. In fact, on the Temple of Delphi in Turkey, besides Greece, this was the temple of Apollo 2,500, 2,000 years ago. And on the frontispiece was written Notis Auton, which means know yourself, in Latin, Grosso te ipsum. In order to know yourself, that's the most difficult, because we have the idea of what we are from what we have received from the superficial culture, from the materialistic culture, and we forget the different things.
Energy. So that's the energy and matter aspect.
Exactly. So, we can speak constantly about this and see the effects of the wrong point of view, which has led us to make incredible discoveries. Imagine 200 years ago, or a little bit less, we discovered the amino acids, and then the science was proud that they discovered 24 essential amino acids. And because of this, they saw that our body is made from the 24 amino acids. The vegetables are made only from 14, maximum 15 amino acids. So because of this, they told us that we need to eat the animal proteins because in the vegetable world they are not existing. Well, just a simple observation. We are eating, we as a human beings, not me, but the humans are eating animals which normally don't eat other animals. They eat only grass. Imagine the cow, the horse, the sheep, and the goat. They are eating only grass, and they make this body, and they have also these vitamins. They say, the vitamin B12, which is needed for the iron, for the blood, And this vitamin B12 is mostly located in the liver. This is you study in nutrition science, but the liver is the organ which does the transformation of the vitamin C into vitamin B12. But we have seen that if the liver is too busy because of physical intoxication or emotional intoxication from the frustration, from the anger, from the stress, has lost the energy to do this transformation of the vitamin C into vitamin B12, and then you have the iron deficiency, the blood scarcity of the iron and everything. So this is light which should arrive also in this department, because we are so subdued, we are so affected by this dark energy of the ignorance. In fact, when you go in India, one of the beautiful mantras, one of the singing that you also do in the art is the light which dissipates the darkness of the ignorance, because the ignorance of yourself, ignorance of the reality, ignorance of what we are, this is blocking us to proceed. But remember that now the earth is under the ascension frequency. There are portals in the universe which are sending energy. They're open because we will probably soon meet other beings that are supervising us in order we don't do too much disaster. And this energy will be very strong. And the human frequency already in the earth is already grown up. So this means that we are affected by this. And if we are not aware, we are not able to recognize that this is a cleaning process. It's not something bad. It's like the sickness. The sickness is how the body is trying to deal with the mistakes which we have done. Mistakes which can be on the physical level, on the emotional level, on the mental level, on the spiritual level. And all these mistakes, they are not to be punished. So we feel like we have the sickness as a punishment because of our mistakes. No, these are the protection of the divine mother's energy, because nature, I would call nature like the divine mother in physical expression, protecting her children. You see the mother always protected with her children. And the same is for us. We should feel this protection, but the problem lies in the principle which we have been given at the start of the 1700, when they said that nature is not perfect, because it's only the human mind which has the authority, the capacity to correct the imperfections of nature. And what are the imperfections? Remember, is the sickness, the pain, the sufferings, and death, which are not the imperfection. If you say nature is perfect, all the expressions of nature are perfect expression of protectivity, of protection. But this becomes difficult because we have the imprint of the mother's fear of the pain, and so when we have the pain, immediately we trigger the program of response which we receive. Exactly. Survival, and then adrenaline and everything. So I don't know if you maybe have some question up to this point.
So the darkness
Yes.
is then a much wider definition of darkness, because you include unconscious, incapable, ignorance. There's a whole many other words.
Like for the light.
For the
light, there is the opposite. The light is what appears, what shows the rationality, everything.
Mhm.
And in the darkness, you have the darkness, so there is you don't have the senses, the vision, for example, is not working, is absence of the illumination, and so you cannot see things. But like I remember these acupuncturists, these French acupuncturists say, I don't need to see. I have other means to have the reality, so that's so everything is interacting, is needed, because without one, the other one does not have sense.
In 10 days' time or so, we'll reach the winter solstice here in the northern hemisphere, and where Jeff is, he will reach
The
maximum light.
Maximum light exposure. Yes.
Globally, should be nice and balanced.
Yes. And I would like to remind you also that the Christmas, it was in the ancient times, Christmas has been stolen as a festivity because in the ancient time the populace was worshipping the sun god Mitra. It was the festivity in honor of Mitra, and it was exactly the 25th of December in the northern hemisphere because the people were observing after the solstice that you will have in 10 days in Australia. You will see that slowly the sun exposure will start to diminish up to the winter solstice, in which it's at the minimum. So there is the maximum darkness exposure and the minimum light exposure. And because they were seeing that the sun was becoming less and less and less, they were getting scared. They said, my God, if the sun is going to disappear, what are we going to do? And then on the 1st of December, it was the minimum. Then the 22nd, it was a little bit better. Then the 22nd, 3rd, 4th, you see that the sun was coming back.
The sun hadn't disappeared.
Yes, so the fear was disappeared with the celebration, because in fact, also in the Sufis, there is this saying, healing starts from laughter. So laughter is the expression of joy, is the expression of an open heart. And if there is fear, you cannot have an open heart. You cannot have joy when there is fear. When if you have an open heart, you have gratitude, joy. You have also the expression of the laughter, which is. And then exactly when you have the fear of the sickness, you don't have the open heart. And in order to do this, we have to do a lot of work. It's not something that you can say by the words. I am, trying to explain to people for all this last probably 50 years, all this, but explaining is not enough. You have also to practice. And that's why we use the practice with the physical, natural practices, with the cold water, the hot and cold, with the pain also. My reflexology can be painful, but the people accept it because they are prepared that this pain is the mean that the body is responding and it wants to stay alive. But then you have to understand what are the mistakes which oblige the body to have this condition.
It's quite transformative. I can verify that.
And also you can verify with all the people that come to have this example of this experience. They are transformed. So
it does actually, it has taught me to, reluctantly make peace with pain. Because become friendly and to go through an experience like walking on coals, for instance. Not that I've done that, but then once I can relax into it and accept it and engage with it, there is another side to come out the other side.
That's the same like in the delivery.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
You relax and you trust. I have this, some of my students, lady students now, maybe 50, 60, they had the delivery with the orgasm. And they were reporting me that when in their mind, some fear was starting to creep out, they were feeling pain. As soon as they were reconnected with the perfection of nature, with the trust in nature, there was pleasure. So that's the same in our body. It's a huge process, believe me. Like when you change, you exit from the darkness of the knowledge. In that moment, you don't know this department, and you enter in another dimension. I remember always Plato, the philosopher Plato, who says that the human being is living like in a tunnel, in a cavern, and is reality. What is conscious is is this cave, and the shades, the shadows, everything that are in the cave are his reality. Then the master is the one with the art of Socrates, the midwife, Maietic, it's called. It brings the students gently to see and observe the outside of the cave, where is the source of all these shades of shadows and maybe noises and everything that is. And then the student then can choose.
Yes.
Not obliged to accept what the master or the teacher is showing. Because we are human beings and we are different from the animals because we can choose. The animals cannot choose. They are obliged to follow the mother laws, the natural laws, so they cannot do mistakes because in the mother's laws you are protected. We have been taken out from this. We have the free will, the possibility to choose. In this way, we have to. In the choice, you can also do the mistakes, but the value of the mistakes is to become aware of the mistake. So there is the right and wrong, light and darkness, pain and pleasure, sickness and health. In fact, I always say, who can appreciate the health? Only who has been sick. If you've never been sick, the health is not something that you can appreciate.
Take it for granted.
But I remember my son was always very healthy. When he started to have some physical reaction, he was really scared, because he didn't know what was happening. Very strange. Yes, it's beautiful.
So, Jeff, we started with your idea of darkness and light, energy and matter.
Pain and pleasure.
Well,
The opposite, that these are the archetypes. Male and female, mother and father. And then all the archetypes that we have consciously and unconsciously, because the most efficient or the most active, the most effective, and what is in the unconscious, not in the conscious.
okay.
That's why when we think we are free, this is the moment in which you are most conditioned, and you think you are free because they give you, it's like in the Matrix, they give you the illusion that you are free. In reality, with all the conditioning, with all the fears, we have been guided to make choices which are against us, our superior divine quality.
So these are all unconscious. The unconscious is the driving force that none of us are aware of.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. So currently in the UK, he obviously resides in the Italy. So you mentioned at the start there that you're looking to do workshops where you meet face to face with people,
Yes.
rather than what we're doing on this StreamYard streaming service, where it's all online. So the actual humanity of actually touching people, seeing people, reading the energy, that's really the whole ethos of what Michelangelo is speaking about, is the physical, emotional, the mental, spiritual, and that ethos. So what's your plan? Where can people from the UK reach out to you, and whereabouts will you be going in the next couple of weeks?
On the next couple of weeks, I will be away from England because I'm going to have a little bit of a holiday away from the cold. They like it in the Canada. But we will be back in February, where we will start. But remember also, I love the streaming and everything. And then this is needed also to do the physical experience, because I cannot pass you the reflexology through the videos, and I cannot pass the sensation of the cold water and all the other physical sensations that are necessary for the experience of what you're going to learn. This is a fantastic mean to give the information, but informations without practice, they're really missing a part, you know. And then here, the moment, especially here in England, in Italy, everywhere, people have been filled with a lot of informations, but they think they know because they have the mind stuff. And
they Googled it.
Yes. When the problem is, after you get the information, you have to verify the practice. And sometimes they have the information, but for example, the healing crisis, I had also the experience with some women. They wanted to do the natural birth, the natural delivery, and they were thinking they knew everything. And then at the moment of the delivery, the pain was so much because the fear of the mothers, the grandmothers, you know, their generation, past generation was too strong, so they could not handle it. And the husband takes them to the hospital. As soon as they pass the threshold of the hospital, the baby is born, which is the indicator that the fear was so strong, and in the moment they felt secure. And why do they feel secure? Why people feel secure with the traditional medical terms and issues? Because when we were, that's also very subtle. When we were children, our mothers have been brought up with the idea that they are not good mothers if they don't comply with certain standards which are given by the society. And when they see the child sick, instead of being happy because the child is releasing and is doing something, they get into panic and they start to judge themselves as no good mothers, not appropriate. They don't know what to do. The sickness scares them, the sickness in the child especially. So they call the doctor or they bring the child to the emergency. Mm-hmm. In the moment in which they arrive to the emergency or the doctor arrives, they relax because their fear, their guilt, everything slows down because now they put the child in a higher form of authority or protection. The child feels it. We feel it. Mm-hmm. That's why the people feel safe if they go to the hospital, they go to the doctor and everything. And not being aware of this program, they keep on in this. Mm-hmm. It's like when the people use the drugs, if they are not aware, but to be aware is something that is not only in the mind. To be aware of what is this program, because they feel, I was working with the drug addicted people, and when they were, even those who are mentally aware that the drug is not good, when they stop using the drug, at a certain point, you experience the abstinence crisis, mm-hmm. in which you feel like dying. Mm-hmm. You feel very sick. And if they receive a drop of the drug, immediately they feel better. So they get convinced that the drug is helping them. No, the drug helps them to be stuck and prisoner in the perverse cycle of the drug. And this perverse cycle of the drug is not only physical, it's also emotional. Some people, they get in the mother's energy, the mother program, and if they need to feel safe, when they are in this mother, when there is something that is disturbing their life, they're tired, there is havoc around, a disturbance, then the mother's energy comes to protect them. So they stay in the mother's energy, and then immediately they feel safe. So they don't recognize how destructive this could be. That's a big process. That's why we can talk a lot, and thank God, thank Jeff and your radio that allows us to give this concept. But this concept are not only theory. The tragedy is that they become very practical, and if you don't have the teacher or the instructor and the discipline and somebody to guide you to pat on your shoulder, say, hey, be careful, what are you doing? You're following them. The best. I'm not okay. And
so
yes.
It's true, Jeff asked that, we start with the physical world because this is where we are. Yes. And when it comes to the yes foods and no foods, okay, if you like, I was driven by fear to adopt this way of eating because I didn't feel I had a choice.
You were trapped in a dungeon, in a cage.
Yeah. And so for me, I've learned over 24 years in following the yes foods and no foods, that only eating yes foods.
How much freedom?
Yeah. And it's opened a whole new world of cuisine and culinary and different tastes. And then I've also learned that when the healing crisis comes, the level of discipline that's needed to just stick with just yes foods.
No food at all sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes in my case, I've refused food. I haven't been able to eat anything. Yeah. And for months sometimes,
Yes.
not being able to eat anything because of the judgments and everything that were going on, the emotional releases that were taking place. So fundamentally, we are here in a physical body, but that's where we can start feeding ourselves and learning self-discipline, so that when the releases on the emotional level or the mental level come, that there is a foundation by which you can begin to keep on trusting in nature and trusting that your body knows what's best, and not to listen to the chit chat going on in the head. And please,
and say, you brought this beautiful issue of being in prison and being trapped, because on all the levels. And I would quote Mahatma Gandhi. When he was put in prison by the British authorities, he wrote in his diary, "Today I am in prison and I never felt so free. And in my mind, I was following all the other people that are physically free outside and they are prisoners of their mental programs and structures." Yes. So then this experience of feeling trapped in the food is also repeating that when you felt trapped in the womb, you were not coming out because the mother, being in pain, she was holding. And then releasing this, you come out. So it was for me, for example, I had a report from my mother that I was almost 2 days blocked in the womb. And because my mother was young, she never had been experienced and everything, so she was suffering like crazy. And she was also making me feel a little bit guilty because of that. But then, when she fainted, I was born. So this comes that I have a capacity to stand the pain and the effort and all what is in my life, and then at the end comes out and you let out. So, and that's the program I built in myself. So I'm already trying to decodify and just to re-experience it. And I am lucky because at my age I have already started to see this. Also, 3 years ago, with entering in the second set of 7 years, when I was 21, I was diagnosed, I had to die. And I was already experiencing that. I was feeling like dying. And Pauline, she can witness, I was feeling all this tired and it was nothing. It was a really processing this, and I recognized after, my God, what beautiful.
In fact, looking back over the last few months, mine is the opposite, because my mother only had 3 contractions and then I came flying out. So nobody believed that this baby was coming. And so Michelangelo has the experience of being held in the womb, the opposite. And if I look back over the last few months, it came to a crescendo in this last week, both of us. So differently. Yours was going on and on and on and on. And mine was building slowly, but I didn't realize it was happening until that's it, I'm done. So
all right, very good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll call it a night.
So that's why we start with the physical.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's I'm starting to flag it now. It's been a long day. So we might come back in very much, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. Repeat the please.
Pardon me?
Can you say that again? Because it's only part that came through.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll catch up with Michelangelo sometime in February, March, eh? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
Now, enjoy your Christmas break in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I sent you a little poem that I'd written about the natural life system, and it is: if you want to be in charge of your own health matters, step beyond mindless chit and chatter, walk a different pitter patter, come to Michelangelo and have a natter, create from what seems in tatters, connect within you that which seriously matters. No more disease-ridden chatter, stop fat cats from getting fatter, with a principle that makes steadfast strides, not a pitiful pitter-patter. Arise in sovereign glory from ash-laden scatters, as old illusions crumble and shatter, but you may be accused of being as mad as a hatter. Exercise your own grey matter, embrace a refreshing discipline, and watch egos splatter. Yonder still, make astonishing pancake batter. It's for you to decide if you really matter.
Okay.
And I have to say, you've done a brilliant job, Jeff, really, with all the hashtags and everything else that you've gone blurry-eyed over in the last couple of weeks. And it's astonishing. It's astonishing what's coming online, really, isn't it?
Well, it's a school of the air, isn't it? Or school, a planetary school. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. God bless, and Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you very, very much. Thank you.
All the best. All the best.
Bye now.